They told us government would pay 50%, these people would pay 50%, but then they said 50% of nothing. Go back and litigate to know what 50% is. So we can only access 50% of what was given. So 1.3 billion, 50% is what the state agencies are to pay to the community. You cannot give a judgment that does not restore, is not restorative in nature, and has come too late for a community that has already lost lives. They made us suffer. They withheld those results until after Lynette died. And then they sent the results to us. They brought the results to us in the OWINO community. We cannot be citizens of a country that only accepts tax money but takes no responsibility for the citizens and human lives. So thank you for compensating us. But we are coming back. We need to know why these people were allowed to die, while if the Ministry of Health had taken action, they would be alive today.
Wacha tuombe. Baba wa mbingu na nchini katika jina la Yesu. Mbele zako Masaya Baba. Kushukuru Mungu wetu. Bwana sikutoka mbali. Kesi Baba umeiona. Sasa kafili sio Baba. Atakwambia nasi Mungu. Mabonde na milima. Shida na dhiki. Maneno na vita. Ni siku ya leo. Umetuona.
Kwa ufupi, ndani ya matokeo yetu ni kwamba tumeafikia ndani ya uamuzi wa koti ndani ya uamuzi.
We however set aside determination on award of damages for loss of life.
Kwa hivyo tumetenga zaidi katika kuhakikisha urejesho kwa upotezaji wa maisha wa watu
and personal injury,
na wale ambao walioumia kwa mili yao.
And in return we reinstate the award issued by the Environment and Land Court.
Na kwa hivyo tunatoa ile zawadi ambayo imetolewa na wale wasimamizi wa
Every generation faces times when individuals must arise and reach new heights. Generations pass, but something survives.
Private organizations and some of the government have tested up to 300 victims. So we still have more than 3,000 victims that have not been tested. The last time they came and drew blood from 250 people, that is the public health with NEMA and other organizations, but they never brought back the results. It's been more than a year now, and the results are not with us. So we are here to remind them that if they want us to sleep here, we will come, okay? We will come and camp here because UHURU is toxic. We cannot live there. The water we drink is poisoned.
Nature,
the soil, our children...
the environment, and our ecosystems are examples of such constants. Air, soil, and water. However, we frequently overlook these constants in our planning and daily activities. The people of UHURU stood up and came together. They attempted to bell the proverbial cat to protect their environment in collaboration with Phyllis Omido and Sejea. The Kenyan government state agencies NEMA and EPZA being the vicious cat. They came out victorious after a grueling battle that stretched all the way to the Supreme Court. Soon after this amazing fit, sci-fi films caught up with Phyllis Omido, and this is the story.
How are you feeling today?
I would say bittersweet, It's the first time in a long time I've had a good sleep because there's a heavy burden that has been taken off my shoulders. I am relieved that finally the people of OWINO have seen a glimmer of justice, a light at the end of the tunnel. And that gives me a lot of joy. But at the same time, brings up memories of victims of lead poisoning who died telling me, Mama, don't give up. Don't ever give up. I know I'm dying, but don't give up. And so it's bittersweet, yeah. The actual name of the community is OWINO UHURU. It is a name that was given to that community because the first man from upcountry, a Luo man from Nyanza, who settled in that place, he had come to work for the railways that was being constructed at that time. He was one of the construction workers. He requested the local Giriama community to give him a home, a place to call home while he worked at for the railways. And that's why the Giriamas called that place OWINO UHURU, the place that belongs to OWINO, the one who came during independence. So that's why it's called OWINO UHURU. So this, I first interacted with the OWINO UHURU community in 2009 while working for Metal Refinery EPZ Limited. I was required to interact with that community as a human resource officer because I was employing a lot of people from that community, but as well as an administration officer because I was running things like EIS for the smelter. Therefore, I interacted a lot with the OWINO UHURU community. So after I left Metal Refinery EPZ, I began to agitate for the closure of Metal Refinery EPZ because I learned that they were doing some work that was very highly hazardous, and they were exposing the workers directly to high levels of lead. And one of my co-workers, his name was Carissa, was the first victim who succumbed to the lead poisoning. He was working at the smelter, he just passed out, went to hospital, his kidneys, his liver had failed and he died. And that increased my agitation. I started writing letters to the National Environmental Management Authority, to the Exports Processing Zones Authority, requesting them to relocate that smelter from where it was because of the high environmental and health danger it posed for the OWINO UHURU community and the workers. So that went on from 2009 up to 2011 when I was arrested and charged in court with inciting violence and illegal gathering. I had to undergo a judicial process for 1 year, and I was acquitted in 2012. And then I went back to continue that work. I reached out to many CSOs, but there was no expertise as such to understand issues around heavy metal poisoning, environmental pollution, and therefore many CSOs shied away from taking up this case. I tried really hard, and I was not getting partners to work with. I got a lot of human rights partners who highlighted the issues that were in the community, but I felt like the environmental aspect, the issue of environmental health harm was not there was no expertise, no one was grasping it. And therefore I took it upon myself to start documenting what was going on in the community. But I also talked to the community and told them that we needed now to register an organization. Partly also because when the police arrested me, they had said that the work that I'm doing is not backed by any organization. And therefore, I was doing illegal work by engaging the community. And therefore, in 2012, we registered the Center for Justice, Governance, and Environmental Action. And our main mandate at that time was the agitation of the right to a clean and healthy environment for the OWINO community. So Kenya had just gained the new constitution, and the new constitution recognized the right to a clean and healthy environment. And so our agitation from 2010 was actually within the new constitution. And one of the pathways that the constitution recommended for accessing environmental justice was litigation. And therefore, we started preparing ourselves to go to court. And in 2016, we filed our case in the Environment and Land Court in Mombasa. And we began the process of the judicial process.
Power! 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 Tuna nini? Power! Tuna nini? Tuna sauti! Tuna nini? Sauti! Tuna nini? Sauti! Tuna nini? Sauti!
In 2021, the Environment and Land Court gave us a judgment, and we had won the case. They gave the community compensation and money for remediation, as well as costs that we had incurred during this process. Now, that said, while we were trying to move the 6 state agencies and 2 non-state agencies that we had sued to now fulfill their obligations as per the court decree. The 2 non-state agencies went to court and appealed the case, and therefore we ended up at the Court of Appeal.
Twitter ameongea na mimi peupe, kwa sababu sitaki kufanya kitu nyuma ya mgongo wenu, si ndio? Yeah. Na wale ambao wamesikia vile ameongea, amesema ya kuwa wamejua uzito wa kesi yetu na kuahirisha. Wanasema ni kwa sababu yule judge aligonjeka, mmoja wa wale judges. Unakumbuka ni judge watatu wanasimamia kesi yetu, wanasema aligonjeka, na wanasema kuwa msife moyo, watahakikisha kuwa mmepata haki yenu. Wamesema ya kuwa ile kesi yetu ina uzito fulani. Sasa lazima waangalie kila aspect ili mtu yoyote asipoteze haki yake. Hivyo ndio wameniita, wakaniambia kwa kuwa sheria pia wamepiga kuwapatia protection. Sasa vile nataka tutembee polepole. Kuna watoto pale wanataka wabadilishwe pampers, ziko hapa. Twende pale kwa hii town, ziko hapa karibu. kitu kule, alafu kutoka hapo ni tupange tuwe tutaenda tutafanya vipi mambo ya kulala sasa. Sawa. Unanielewa? Yeah. Sasa tuende tukiimba polepole tukidance kidogo kidogo mpaka hii ground ya hapa si ya mbali. Hapa, si ndio? Wale watu tunapaa tukifika kule. Tunapajua? Haya, wenye ngoma waweke ngoma.
Now, at the Court of Appeal, they gave us a very ambiguous judgment. We stayed in court until 2023, I think. And then they gave us a judgment. Now, in that judgment, they said that they acknowledged the fact that the community had been highly poisoned. They acknowledged that the community was 13.5 acres. They acknowledged that there were 3,500 people in the community. But they went ahead to tell us that they wanted us to go back to the Environment and Land Court to prove injury for each victim. That is one thing that we did not understand, because we had not gone in for a personal injury case. We had gone in for an environmental harm case. So it was clear that at the Court of Appeal, there was no expertise or competence to understand environmental law, and also they did not understand environmental justice in any way. And therefore, after they gave us that judgment, they also, despite the fact that they knew that the two non-state agencies had never made appearance in court, they went ahead and said that the non-state agencies were to pay 50% of the award. The award, and then they told us government would pay 50%, these people would pay 50%, but then they said 50% of nothing. Go back and litigate to know what 50% is. And so it was a very childish, I would say, judgment. It was beneath the Court of Appeal to give such a judgment. And we felt that in the interest of justice for the UHURU community, we should challenge that mischievous ruling. And therefore, we went back to the Supreme Court. Now, yesterday, the Supreme Court gave us a judgment. Many people have blamed me because I did not publicize it. I had lost faith in the judicial system in Kenya. I went to the community. I did not give them hope in any way. I told them to just prepare themselves that whatever the judgment is, I was not going to abandon the community. I would still think of a way for us to litigate and get justice for them.
Koti itatoa uamuzi kwenye kesi yetu. Ndio sasa tunasubiri uamuzi yenyewe itatolewa kwa njia ya email, so hatutarajiwi kufika mbele ya mahakama. Okay. Kuongea, so kwenye email zetu tunangojea tu. Hata judgment yenyewe.
Fortunately, the judgment was favorable. We lost a lot because they still upheld the issue of liability to 50-50, which means we will not access 50% of that compensation, which is an issue I will take up later on. So we can only access 50% of what was given. So 1.3 billion, or 50%, is what the state agencies are to pay to the community, which comes about to 750 million. So that is the award that the community has gotten. And then they upheld 700 million for cleanup. Again, only 50% of that is what we can access. And therefore, it is 350 million that is going into remediation. So the money for remediation is hardly enough. Our budget was around 700 million. No, it was around 900 million. And therefore we have to find sources to raise the rest of the amount for us to do a proper remediation, because that area is big. It's 13.5 acres. Remediation is a process where you remove lead and lead elements from the soil, from the houses. All the 250 households have to be remediated. We have to clean up the river. We have to clean up all the wells and the boreholes in the community to remove the lead elements. We have to change all the iron sheets, because we've tested those iron sheets and they have very high levels of lead. And therefore, we have to do all that work. So we are still, much as we are happy and I know the country is excited, there is a very stark reality that the funds allocated are not enough to do the work that is supposed to be done in that community. So the court has somewhat given us relief, but for me, the definition of effective remedy is a remedy that comes within time and actually is restorative in nature. You cannot give a judgment that does not restore, is not restorative in nature, and has come too late for a community that has already lost lives.
Kwa tabia zake, yeye alikuwa ni mtoto mzuri, mtoto mtiifu, anidhamu. Kwa rafiki yangu, alikuwa rafiki yangu, ni kila mchezo tulikuwa tunacheza naye pale kiwanjani. Mara kidogo nikasikia nasikia Samia ameaga dunia, nikasikia vibaya.
So for me, it's bittersweet. It's not what I expected, but I am very grateful to the Supreme Court. They showed professionalism. They looked at the facts and they stood by truth and justice. So that is where we are today. We stopped counting in 2019, where 300 victims had succumbed to lead poisoning. And that includes children who were born as stillbirths, the number of miscarriages that happened, and then children and now adults who died. Some of the children are like Sammy. I made a big fuss when Sammy died because Sammy was very close to my heart. And I could not believe it when he succumbed. So Sammy died shortly after his mother died, Catherine Auma. The first woman who died was a lady called Lynette Nabwire. Lynette's story, I feel that I should talk about Lynette because Lynette had several miscarriages. She had been interviewed. There are clips of her talking about the fact that she really wanted to give her husband, as a young, 25-year-old woman, she wanted to give her husband children.
Lead poisoning already, having miscarried twice in 2 years. Miscarriages are common amongst women with elevated blood lead levels. Lynette's enduring wish was to have a baby.
And that we needed the ear of the president on this.
1 year after meeting Lynette, we've gone back to OWINO UHURU to check on her and everyone else.
Lynette Nabwire had a very high lead level. It was 270 something. You know, the WHO defines lead poisoning at 5 micrograms per deciliter of lead in blood. And therefore, anything above that is not good for a human being. Lynette Nabwire had over 270 something micrograms per deciliter of lead in blood, showing that her levels were very high. She was tested by government. She had tried to carry her pregnancies to term. She had almost, I think, 3 or 4 miscarriages. And then she finally, when we closed down the smelter in 2016, she finally managed to carry her baby to term. And then she gave birth, but the levels of lead in her blood were too high, to the point where the postmortem said that her body was not able to pump that blood because of the high lead levels, and therefore she succumbed after childbirth. And so her son was born. Immediately I tested him. He was born positive for lead poisoning.
She died in September, soon after childbirth, all right? Because her body could not pump the amounts of lead that were in her system. And therefore, when it reached the intestines, it gave up and she died. She has left a baby who most likely has lead poisoning. This is one case. We have so many of such cases in the community.
Wetu mmoja hapa ambaye tukiongea sasa mke wake ameaga na bado yuko mochari. Hatujafikiri tutamsafirisha vile atazikwa, na ameacha mtoto ambaye ana wiki 4 peke yake. Hatujafanya utafiti na uchunguzi wa postmortem, lakini tunajua kuwa matokeo yake ya lead ilikuwa juu sana. Kwa hivyo nitampa tu kidogo kwa dakika 5, alafu Hosea utachukua uendelee na program.
Amjambo wanamtaa. Mimi sina mengi, mimi ndio mwenye ambaye amefiliwa. Bibi yangu alipatikana na lead kweli. Wakaleta madawa akatumia, kafikia wakati wake alikuwa na mimba akajifungua. Ile kujifungua alibleed sana. Baada ya kubleed alikaa hapo wiki nzima, wakampa ruhusa ya kwenda. Alikuwa ni baada akakaa wiki moja akawa iko sawa. Wiki ya pili akaanza kusema anaumwa kichwa, tumbo na macho. Imeenda hivyo, walipea dawa damu moja. Kamregesha wiki ya pili Portris, wakaniandikia dawa la damu. Nikanunua dawa la damu. Hivyo hakuwa tofauti. Ikabidi wiki hii ambayo amekufa nikampeleka hospitali tena, ikapatikana kwamba kuna shida ndani ya tumbo. Hasa ndio ikaje kamlemea kabisa mpaka akaniacha ndani ya nyumba. Sina mengi mimi ni hayo. Na mimi naachia mtoto mdogo ambaye wiki 4. Na sijui nitafanyaje. Mtaangalia vile mtanisaidia yeye. Majina anajulikana kama Jackson Wanyama. Mama anajulikana kama Lynette Nabwire Wanyama.
Asante.
So for me, there is Mzee Daudi, there is Cosmas, Mzee Cosmas, Mzee Kidevu, there is Bamzega, who has died recently. There is many people. There is Bontown, Msembi. There is so many people who have died in UHURU from lead poisoning. Now, the sad part of this is that when these people's blood was tested, government initially refused to disclose these blood lead results to us. We had to demonstrate. Actually, when Lynette died, we threatened to carry her corpse to the Ministry of Health. And that's when they ran and brought the results to us. I have video clips up to today. This is a thing that I have to take up at some point, because we cannot run a government outfit that is so inhumane and insensitive to human life. A government that makes decisions to hide, results, blood results of victims of their own acts. This is why we included the Ministry of Health in the lawsuit that we brought to court. They made us suffer. They withheld those results until after Lynette died. And then they sent the results to us. They brought the results to us in the OWINO community. Now, after that, we of course, after Lynette had died, we of course tried severally to engage the state agencies on their own to come and remediate the community and compensate the victims. But all of them were saying that there's nothing wrong. The whole process of litigating this issue shows how insensitive the Kenyan government state agencies are. We cannot be citizens of a country that only accepts tax money but takes no responsibility for the citizens and human lives. Now, I like the UN slogan, like, every human being is born free and equal in dignity and in right. It does not matter the economic status of a community. That does not negate in any way the obligation of the government of Kenya towards the right to life. So thank you for compensating us. But we are coming back. We need to know why these people were allowed to die, while if the Ministry of Health had taken action, they would be alive today. If the Ministry of Health, we all heard about Flint, Michigan. Nobody litigated. The Attorney General called the lawyers for the victims and said, we poisoned you. As government, we failed you. And therefore, we want to compensate you. What do you want us to do? They made an agreement. They were compensated. The water pipes were cleaned out. The environment was remediated. This is why governments exist. And therefore, for me, this shows the illegitimacy of decision makers. The fact that Kenyans have to rise up and start asking questions based on this OWINO case. Because our forefathers say in Swahili, ukiona mwenzako amenyolewa, weka kichwa chako maji. So don't assume that this thing that is entrenched within the state agencies does not affect you because you're not from OWINO. There is rise in cancer cases across the country because no one is asking the questions that we need to ask. This lead poisoning that people have ignored in OWINO has been washed into the ocean. Everyone comes to Mombasa to swim in the ocean. I know that many Kenyans have been exposed. When we were raising questions about remediating that compound that was holding the lead smelter after we forced it to shut down through the East African community, Senate failed to shut it down. Parliament failed to shut it down. All the state agencies refused to close down Metal Refinery. One day we should have a truth and justice and reconciliation because it is the East African Community Parliament that helped us to shut down Metal Refinery. And therefore, there are questions, more questions than answers. And even though we have received justice, for me, I do not count this as justice. I'm very grateful to the Supreme Court and to the Environment and Land Court for professionalism. But something is critically wrong with governance in Kenya. And this is where I am today. These are issues that I want us to talk about as Kenyans. Something is critically broken where 300 Kenyans can die. If we had raised our bar after those 300 victims had died in OWINO, Shakahola would not have happened. We can't keep letting things happen because they do not affect us. So for me, much as we have won this case, it is a rallying call to Kenyans. We can make our country better only if we are more involved. We should not continue with the tendency that we have, that we don't care about governance. We do not care what happens to the next person. We are not our brother's keeper. Let them die because they are from UHURU. We are from, Nyali, and therefore it doesn't affect us. Shame on us, because it does affect us. It did not only affect OWINO. I will tell you for sure, a lot of people have been exposed to cancers and other things because of what happened in OWINO, just that they do not know it. I think Phyllis will always remain Phyllis. I will continue. I am very passionate about the right to a clean and healthy environment because I know that if we raise our bar on the right to a clean and healthy environment, that is when we will get things right as Kenya, as Africa. Because once the environment is clean, we will reduce our health burden. We will reduce the amount of money that we are spending on medical expenses. We will have a healthy nation. We will have a workforce that is healthy and therefore more productive. We will have a budget that is not overburdened with things like health, because right now families are overburdened with issues of cancers, especially liver failure, kidney failure. Yes, I have these issues in UHURU, which I have to deal with now moving forward. We have to remediate the UHURU community. But for me, it's not just about UHURU, it's about Kenya. It's about our people in Kenya. The fact that we need to get things right. We need to sit down and discuss what we are going to do with our waste, our solid waste. Right now in Mombasa, everyone is disposing in the ocean, So for me, I believe that there's so much work that I cannot complete within my lifetime. I have to mentor people that will continue this work after I am gone. And therefore, I will continue working. I will continue working until when I'm not able to work anymore.